Let's kick it off then. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first official live Omneo webinar series where we're tackling some of the most important topics around omnichannel CX that are either trending or keeping people up at night. Today, we have a very special webinar for you all in the topic of loyalty and why brands should even bother. It's no secret loyalty programs are hard. They're hard to design, they're hard to grow, and can be seen as very time consuming and costly tasks, only to be rewarded with reduced margins, complaints, or in many cases, lost customers due to the misalignment in value. So, why bother? Can staff in store be bothered? Do ecom teams even care? Do customers care enough to be known when they visit or shop? What is in it for anyone anyway? So today I'm joined with the Managing Director of Elevate Loyalty Australia and One Tap Group UK. Carly has over 20 years experience in loyalty, incentives and technology systems. She's led the design and delivery of 40 plus B2C, B2B and enterprise programs across ASX listed companies, startups and consultancies. Carly, no doubt, has quite the rap sheet. She's the APAC host of Let's Talk Loyalty, co-founder and moderator of Loyalty Economics, co-founder of Win Global, and a founding board member of the IMA. As a certified loyalty marketing professional, she applies behavioral insight to drive member value and ROI. And of course, the infamous Danny Phillips, co-founder of Omneo, certified retail nerd and principal loyalty aficionado. His expertise spans countless loyalty program designs and implementations with the use of the Omneo CX platform, which helps brands deliver on the promises made to their customers, and the CX toolkit designed to enable omnichannel retailers perform at their best. Thanks again for you both for being here and giving up your time. Carly, I'm going to start with you with a question that's been very front of mind for a lot of retailers, and that question is, do you think most brands are rewarding the wrong behaviors in loyalty programs?
I think most is probably harsh. I won't start off a Friday morning saying most retailers are doing that. But I think, yes, it is happening. And there are cases where it's happening for sure. And I think the ones where there's this kind of attitude of we're going to get our customers or our members to jump through lots of hoops to then participate in our program. And in some cases, it's not always intentional, but it does occur where there's extra friction points in place. So the member has become, has joined the program, has signed up and done all the right things at the start. So member has been acquired. Once that's happened, we don't really want to see programs where there's extra things to do to then participate. What we want to see is where members can seamlessly interact, but enjoy the program. Like just let them get involved. So what we're trying to look at is how do we remove some of those friction points that effectively are forfeiting data. And that's probably, I know it's a big topic that Danny's going to love chatting about as well, but this is where we're looking at it from a loyalty perspective. Let the member get in, have some fun and engage with the program and remove the friction where we can.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think there's a couple of little symptoms that I spot because I obviously sign up to all the programs as well, and many that I probably wouldn't join naturally, but I want to see what's sort of going on out there. The ones I notice the most where I feel like they may be giving away margin where they don't have to, or they're rewarding the wrong behaviors, is the ones where you turn up to shop as you would anyway. They ask whether you're a member and you read out your mobile number or your partner's mobile number if that's what you have to do. And they say, oh, it looks like you've got money in your account. Would you like to use it? You've got points, you've got credit. And you go, oh, that's news to me. Sure, I'll happily take a discount. So whenever that happens, I'm standing there with a big bag of dog food like I bought the other day and says, you've got $5 to use on that. I'll definitely take that. But I was already there. I was about to pay full price. Maybe it's those behaviors that make me go, yeah, I will go back to that store next time because maybe that surprise will happen, but it's not necessarily changing my behavior. So just watching those sorts of actions as they happen. And to your point about the whole remove the friction, I think there's a lot of loyalty mechanics when we're designing a program or looking at which features we're going to adopt, where we realize that there's levels of consumers and not all consumers go from being the lowest level to the highest level. They sort of just slot in where they belong, and that's kind of their lot. It might be different from brand to brand. So I might be what I'd call a casual consumer that really is just there to buy. I like to be known, but I'm not really interested in anything more than just the product I'm buying. Then you've got your prosumer that is, I'm doing a lot of research. I'm quite intentional. I'm part of the program. I'm looking at the ways I can not necessarily game the program, but take advantage of it. Then you got the fanatics that just want to collect all the things and do everything.
Yeah.
So they're the ones that you design all, the really cool parts of your program to cater for. Now, so you can have a program that's quite complicated, or I use the word sophisticated. It's just complicated. Something that's complicated that you care about is sophisticated. But this idea that that maybe the casuals and maybe some of the prosumers will never touch or interact with some of those more sophisticated mechanics, but that's okay, because the fanatics who love the brand and love all the time and attention that have gone into that little thin edge of the wedge parts of the program, that's okay. So I think it's about designing a program that can cater for all those engagement types, and not alienate the people at the bottom ends. Because if they go, well, I only get benefits if I'm part up here, but I'm not interested in being a fanatic of your brand. I love the brand, I want to buy it, but I don't necessarily want to be that. So it's about balancing those things and not intimidating the bottom half, but creating that joyful friction up the top that is, part of being part of the brand, by not removing the remove the utility friction at the bottom, so that I can just shop as a known customer and I can see the obvious benefits. And the minimum benefit for a known customer is an electronic receipt. I think that's, we all agree that that's the bottom rung, which is, I'll tell you a detail so I don't need to keep the receipt. And that's all. So JB Hi-Fi, Bunnings, a few of those do a really good job of just that very, very basic utility of being a known customer. But then what's next, and how do I evolve towards maybe going from casual to prosumer?
And I think your point, Danny, around the spend thresholds, or moving from the bottom to the top, and the fanatics, etc. We've got to also remember that someone might be quite loyal and really like the brand or the program, but they may have a ceiling as to what they can personally spend, and an amount they can only reach, or the relevance of the product. I mean, there's only so many times a year you can buy certain products as well. So it's about they still treating them like good, loyal, and possibly VIP customers. They may not have the ability to spend the same as, the top end, the fanatics, and they may not have the need to have the same frequency. It doesn't mean they're not actually still loyal to the brand.
Yep.
So what I like looking at is, how can we still recognize those members? Because they may be doing other things. They may be referring their friends. They may be being quite active in reviews. They may be doing some other activities that's still quite valuable to the program and the brand.
Yep.
But maybe spend is not that only metric to go, well, great, you're spending more with me, therefore you're valuable. So it's just looking at the different ways to identify the value and the segment of the member in the program.
Yeah, that's great. And I think when I look at some of these decisions about the mechanics we use, whether it's points or tiers, especially, they're the ones, the usual suspects for in discretionary retail, especially. We I think a lot of managers that spend a lot of their time on frequent flyer programs, like, they really think that that's the mechanic that works for them, because it does make them loyal to those things. And most C-suite people generally aren't loyal to anything, because they're above all of that. But they are very loyal. They're loyal to their loyalty programs. When they go shopping around for a loyalty program for their own brand that's in the discretionary end of town, they think that those mechanics apply down here. Whereas I just always think about, talk to brands, go, remember, there's a difference between a grudge purchase program and a discretionary purchase program. The sorts of mechanics and motivations and biases that you are trying to leverage are different. So that, like, points and tiers don't always work as well in the discretionary end as they do in the grudge end. But a lot of brands are sort of in the middle. It's not like a black and white choice. It's a continuum between grudge and discretionary. And even for some brands, one brand could be a grudge for me, but discretionary for you. So you sort of really need to map that out. So you're sort of coming into 3 dimensions. It's about that engagement level, spend level, and then the grudge versus discretionary level of the brands. This is where designing loyalty programs can become quite the science and the art.
Definitely. And no, we can't all be airline programs. It doesn't work across the board.
Just want to touch on that idea of the casual consumer. Is that, that low level engagement, very simplistic loyalty program, is that, do you think that's kind of the reason why a lot of retailers get stuck in this whole transactional view of loyalty?
Transactional view. Look, we talk about this a bit, and I feel like I may hit a nerve with you, Danny, that, the discount programs, everyone's got this discount drug. Not everyone, sorry. A lot have this. It's a drug. We need to get more people off the discount drug, because, let's be honest, consumers are trained. They know to look out for the sales. They're looking for the discounts. And buying during a discount promotion is not the same as being loyal to the program or the brand. It simply isn't. So how can we remove this leniency on just discounting for loyalty as such, or this image of loyalty? And I think you can understand why people are doing it for sure. If there's short-term pressures, we need to hit certain revenue targets, etc. And you can see the cause and effect. So if we throw out a discount or a promotion on for 2 days, we can literally watch the effect of that. So it makes a lot of sense, and we get it. It's more that it doesn't then create loyal behaviors that you're wanting to see ongoing for the brand and the program. So to your point about transactional, I'd say that's probably the first thing that comes to mind, is that discount drug seems to still be pretty prominent here in Australia.
I think it sort of comes down to this sort of core principle that ultimately, I think most brands think they're designing a loyalty program because they want to use customers to solve business problems. So what they're saying is, and a customer is an optional attribute of a transaction. And at the end of the day, I'm in the business of generating transactions through any means necessary. So that's sort of, I feel like, when it seems obvious, but I think when you think about loyalty programs that way and saying, so when I need to move 1,000 more units of a particular SKU, or I need to promote a new brand or whatever else, how can I activate my customers when I'm ready? Because I've got a job to do this week, which is to comp on last year and move a new thing, clear some stock, whatever, or just make my reports look good because for some reason I took this job on and this is my KPI and and the number needs to be this. So that's everything I do is going to do that. Customers, can you help me? And the customers are going, well, yeah, but I'm not in the market for a cushion today, or like it's warm. I don't need a jacket right now. And I get that you need to move them because you didn't sell enough during winter, but I don't need them. And then so that's that side, using customers to solve business problems. So on the other side, if we take the transactional nature of that all together and go, well, when I do need a jacket, when I do need a cushion, when I do need something, like then what? Like when I turn up and everyone's go, well, we're not in cushion selling mode today. Sorry, Danny, I can't, like, really? Like, so we're getting to a point now where it's saying, hey, customers, we're so good at communicating. We're so good at personalizing. We're so good at driving you that you're almost stupid to come and shop with us outside of the times that we're trying to sell something. So, I won't name names, but there's plenty of spend and saves out there, and some of the original spend and save brands out there. You could set your clock by those spend and save cycles. You'd be silly as a very, very loyal member of a brand that does regular spend and saves to shop outside of spend and save. Why would you do that? You're obviously not a very good brand name customer if you shop outside of spend and save. So I'm sort of saying, well, if you design a loyalty program and the mechanics inside that loyalty program to help me shop when I need to shop, and make sure that when I do shop, that I am acknowledged, incentivized, rewarded to shop again sooner on my timeline, not your brand's timeline. That's sort of how I think a loyalty program should be designed. So there is no green button for this Thursday of this campaign rolls out, this loyalty campaign rolls out. It's just customers will shop when they need to shop. And when they turn up, we go, welcome back. We're ready to serve you and what you need. And when you leave, you're going to be ready to go.
Absolutely. And I think there's a level of, there can be anyway, a fear of the complexity around introducing a loyalty program, if we keep calling it as a program, because there can be a fair bit of work in it. There are some metrics that need to be considered. There's the design of it, sure, but there's nothing wrong with phasing in as well. We look at things like evolving a program or phasing in. And once the program is live and running, it's not to say you never have promotions either. So there are time and place for promotions, campaigns, sometimes a discount. There might be a need to clear stock. There might be, still a need to run some level of discount, but it's how do you bring it into a program and make it sort of complementary and work within the program, still identify the customer if they're buying at a discount within the program, so that it's not this reliance on it as much. So how can we kind of overlay it and bring it through together so that it actually works as a cohesive program?
Yeah, I think where people find it complicated is because when you come from a campaign mindset where everything's calendar based and everything's designed on this brand's timeline. So I think when you move to a more, for anyone that's more technical, it's the sort of object oriented or event driven thinking, whereas there is, and I think people that try to do customer journey maps can tie themselves in knots doing this too, where really what you try to identify is there are key moments that happen. There are key events that happen in our sort of brands and with our customers and with our technology. There's only really 7 things that can possibly occur for a known customer. And when they do those things, this is what happens next. And if that thing that they do is above this spend threshold or below this threshold or in this channel or on that channel, you do a few little logic gates, but you're really just saying, when this happens, we do this. When you spend $500, we give you a $100 reward. When you buy from a category you've never bought from before, we send you a follow-up. Thank you for exploring this category that you've never shopped from before. If you buy online for the first time when you've only ever shopped in store, we do this. So it's about, you design all these little triggers and events, and there could be lots of them, and you just optimize the first time you shopped online event, and then you move on to the next one, and then you sort of come back around and you just keep optimizing them all. Every day they're all firing constantly. So it's sort of this idea of, and using email as an analogy for this concept, but I either send an email to everyone on Thursday, and that's 100,000 emails, or this week 100,000 customers were emailed about things that, because they tripped over whatever tripwire they tripped over. And it might have been that today's tripwire was exactly 1 year since you shopped with us last. That might be the tripwire. So you're just building all of these things that are firing up constantly, and every one of those communications or events or incentives or experiences are all mine. So you're sort of designing an entire program for one customer, and then saying, whenever this customer does any of these things, this is what will happen. This is the experience they will have if they're known and decide to be tracked. And that's great. And all those things and there's only 20 possible things that this customer could do with this brand. And we've solved for all of them. And then you just turn it all on.
We like to even have a laugh around the fact that it's like the old school choose your own adventure, right?
Yeah.
Look, you hit this point, you turn that page, you go there, you've got your options. It's very similar mindset. Okay, I bought this, or I did this, or I interacted in a certain way, so now I get sent on that path.
Yep.
And the best thing about that is, and to your point, Danny, around 100,000 emails went out, but they went out to people that were needing it. There were a certain stage, or there was a relevant piece of content or personalization, whatever was in that, versus a blanket blast out. And hey, same goes to everybody.
Yeah. You need both. I think to your point, like if I need to leverage my customer database to solve a business problem, go for it. But if the loyalty program or CX program, if their job, as opposed to the marketing campaign manager's job, is to make sure that we help them shop, then when you need to help selling, we can help you there too. It's not a not a zero sum game.
Yeah.
You can have both, but I think if you get these help the customer shop first, then the happy byproduct is that the campaign managers now have a much richer, more relevant source of customers that they can use respectfully. Yeah.
We've been presenting to many brands the depth and breadth of loyalty programs. There's obviously so many different types of loyalty mechanics to choose from, whether it's tiers, it's incentives, it's points, whatever. There's obviously a lot of different loyalty programs to choose from. And a lot of the times they are great for driving repeat business, but at the same time, not always great for the staff. So I'm curious to discuss, what does a loyalty program look like when it actually helps staff do a better job instead of just being a burden? Maybe Carly, we'll start with you.
Well, the ones that the staff love, obviously, are going to be some of your best for very clear reasons. We know of the best ones in market. I'm sure we could all list them off the top of our head. The ones where the staff member, either as part of their KPI or they love it personally, and at every single transaction, the staff member is asking you, are you a member? How do I log in? What you're going to get? And they're all over it. And that's brilliant. And obviously fantastic and good job to those retailers, because they've really ingrained their program into the sales experience. And that's fantastic. But that's not always easy. And whether it's casual staff coming on, may not be fully trained on the program, can be really busy, especially seasonality. There's a heap of reasons why sometimes that's really hard to have a staff member always reminding a customer about the program. So fair enough. I think the ones that stand out really, really well are the ones where staff are also included in the program in some way. Get them as members, whether it's a special tier just for staff, whether it's a special type for them, however that may look, depending on the brand and the company, but definitely getting them involved are the best. And the test we like to use is, would you sell it to your mum? Would you recommend it to your best mate? Because realistically, if you would recommend that program to your best friend or your mum, whoever, especially in your life, you are highly likely to be engaged as the staff member, I mean. So we want to make it easy, seamless, but something they'd actually be proud of.
Yeah, for sure. I think the idea of having a special status for programs for staff is like that's a non-negotiable for me. I think that has to be that way. I've done many programs where we say no, we have to exclude staff from the program, and I literally delete them out of the system. Whereas I say, well, we can exclude them from certain benefits. I get that. The other big thing that we've seen, only a few brands adopt this, but I think every brand should do this. Certain brands are a little bit different, but if the nature of the product is something that I as a staff member would like to buy, there are cases where I work here but I'd never buy this stuff. That's a thing, but it's pretty rare. So we often see brands go, well, as a staff member you get a discount. Yes. So Carly, you're a good friend of mine. I work here. Don't you buy on your account? I'll buy it for you on the discount. Now, some brands try to stop them doing that and put all these rules in place, whatever. But what's happened is I'm a great customer of the brand and I work here. You were going to be too. I referred you, but now your data's a mess because you bought through my account. My data's a mess because now I'm buying things that aren't my size or suit me because they suit you. So a couple of brands do this thing where they say, well, as a staff member, you get a friends and family discount. So rather than doing that friends and family email once every 6 months like they all do, I have the power, and we talk a lot about status, access, power, and stuff being sort of core principles of loyalty, but I have the power to give my discount or maybe something close to it to 5 people or 3 people. So choose them wisely. So maybe Carly, Dave, and someone else.
Choose wisely.
Yeah. But maybe if I hit my sales targets or if I hit my KPIs this month, I get one more invite. And once I've worked really hard with this brand, I've invited 4 or 5 of my family and friends and family, and they feel really connected to this brand as well. But if I quit, if I leave, it's not just me that loses my discount, 6 other people lose that discount. So from a staff retention point of view, it actually starts playing into this idea of, well, maybe I should stay here. If I go work for this other company, this competitor, I'm not going to get anything like this. I get a great deal for myself. I'm a hero to my friends. And even if I do leave and they lose their discount, all their histories on their accounts, they're going to stay hopefully loyal to the brand forevermore because they feel invested to it too. Whereas if they had all bought it through my account, they would have lost it. So, and then good loyalty programs, if staff have to become a member, they have to dog food the program, they upgrade their membership to staff, they can see all the same mechanics, the same communications that customers get, so they're very aware of what's going on. Then they become ex-staff, they get a different status that follows them off over there as well. But over time, for brands that have got many staff and maybe even casual staff or concession staff, they could be thousands of people over a few years that are touching the brand and are connected to the brand in that engaged way. So I just think, and you can use the same loyalty mechanics to power staff incentive programs, clothing allowances, all those sorts of things. You can use the same system to power consumer programs and staff incentive programs.
Do you think there's a bit of a gap in terms of the motivation of the retail brands to speak to these youth retail staff and to actually get them involved in the program? Are they not motivating them right?
I see a lot of that. I'll be interested in your thoughts on this too, Carly, but the things that I've seen is mainly because of the whole, I'm a cool kid, obviously, look at me. And I don't want to ask you to join a marketing.
Shall we stop now, David? I mean, really.
But they just they all hate this marketing stuff, and they just go, I don't want to be part of it. I don't want you to be part of it. I don't even have to ask you this, but I'm being told to do it. Like, this is all crap. So unless it's actually genuinely going to help you shop and be a better customer, then I'm not interested. So we've got to solve for that. How do we make it? It's not about being cool or anything like that. It's about it being right. It's about this shouldn't be some weird marketing tack on while we're trying to buy interesting footwear or something like that. It needs to be part of the interesting footwear experience that, this is, of course I want to be known. I want to register.
And it goes back to the proud thing, like I said earlier. Like, you've got to put something in place that your staff are actually proud of. And if they won't share it with a family member or a best mate, well, there's probably something we need to look at there or improve or work on. But like anything in life, the best way to sell something or know it well is to use it, right? So if the staff are using it themselves, it's also the best training mechanism, which enables them to communicate it and introduce it and talk about it and remember it, which is the top of mind thing we've all been talking about. So if we expect all of that from the staff, there's nothing better than having them in the program in some way, shape, or form. And you're right, Danny, it depends on the product. We can't all be in. You probably aren't a member of many women's clothing fashion brands. That's fine. But it still helps to just know them, and that's the best way to get a staff member engaged, who will then advocate.
Yeah. But I think this is where, it's probably drifting a little bit off course here, but when we talk about staff and people buying for other people and how does all that work, I think for many, many brands, whether they're like a multi-gender brands where partners buying for each other, but then when you start looking at gifting brands again, I think if you're a brand where most of your purchases are gifts for other people, there's a massive opportunity to think differently about what it means to be a member. And even so, one of the brands we work with is a kids footwear brand. So you're buying stuff I'm buying it. It's my transaction, but I don't own it or wear it. So what are the roles here when most of the things I buy are for someone else? Do I assign that purchase down to the different people? How does that work for them? Mm-hmm. So this idea about, I think, the buyer and the owner, whose wardrobe or cupboard is it in, or whose bench is it? Like, I think that idea of ownership versus transactional ownership, and I think not even trying to go down the whole privacy thing, because that's probably a whole another webinar.
How long have we got?
Yeah, but I mean, the number of times I've been able to walk into a store and give my wife's phone number, and they've been able to give me a lot of information about what she's bought or what, and adding stuff to her account, like that's probably not cool. So, but most loyalty programs run that way at the moment because there's no reason for us to have separate accounts. So the concepts of households and those sorts of things. So I think many brands probably have to start thinking about, what role does households, partners, connections, kids, all that sort of thing, how does that play into our loyalty program? And if they're struggling launching a basic loyalty program now, maybe it's because of that, or maybe the thought of it going even more sophisticated is what's terrifying them about doing this sort of stuff.
And it is important to split that out at some point. And I understand there is complexity. It's not always a simple journey, because the data play is completely skewed if you're blending a member. My sister and I used to share an account on a particular loyalty program years ago. The data they must have been getting would have been all over the shop, because we're not the same size. It doesn't always work that way. So the minute that program needs good quality, clear data about the member, we really need separate accounts. But we, as the consumer in that case, need a good incentive to be a separate account.
Why would you do that?
If we're accruing together, well, I need a reason to separate out, because at that point we were a high status tier and great and spending really well as a combo.
Yeah.
Give us a reason not to be, so you've got some clear and concise data. That's really important.
Because of the complexities of some of these programs, and I'm going to throw you guys a bit of a curveball here, do you think a lot of these brands are confusing the metrics of ROI around loyalty and what they should actually be focused on? What do you think is most important, and why do you think they're failing to deliver on some of these metrics?
Rock, paper, scissors,
Danny. Shall we go?
I've got two go-to metrics. I'll start with those. My two metrics, rightly or wrongly, is annual average value. I know a lot of people talk about lifetime value, but I just think lifetime, that term itself, is such a subjective one as well. And we've had programs where the longer we've been running for, the lifetime becomes, every month you measure it, the average lifetime's changing. So it's kind of a moot point. So, but annual average value is something that's consistent and you can track it. So but just be careful when you're doing these measures that you're not counting someone who shopped for the first time yesterday, because you can't count them because they haven't had a year with you yet. So given a full year, how much does a known customer spend with us and what margin do they make? And do an average. Averages are average, but they're a good place to start, and then break them into cohorts, sort of percentiles, or 10 groups of 10. So that one, and then retention rate. Now, I don't know why, but I'm seeing a lot of brands talk about the return customer rate. And I think return customer rate and retention rate, people think are kind of interchangeable terms, but they're really very different. So it's one of my little bugbears at the moment is about retention rate. So when people say my return customer rate is 70%, what they're saying is, of all the people who shopped last week, 70% of those were people that have shopped at some time in the past. This is not their first purchase. And that sounds pretty good. Good retention rate, doesn't it? That sounds like, people are coming back. We're all good. Nothing to worry about. The problem is that my version of retention rate using an annual lens is all people who shopped in, let's use whole years, in 2023, if there was 100,000 unique customers that shopped one time or 100 times, it doesn't matter, but at least once, how many of those 100,000 people specifically shopped at least once in the next full year? So it's a 2-year window. That, for the same brand that's reporting a 70% return rate, might only be getting a 30% retention rate, because every week, those 30% of people that turned up that were a first-time customer, most of them don't shop again. So you end up with this sort of small number of people shopping multiple times, making your return customer rate look healthy, and you think you don't have a retention problem. But when I show brands their actual retention numbers, you're seeing, how many customers are one and done, every single year is terrifying. And then how many people that do shop, 2 or 3 times, but for whatever reason, 2024 was the last time, or 2023 was the last time, or 2022 was the last time. How many people have we lost along the way? And you start going, geez, like we are hemorrhaging customers here. But it's all hidden because your acquisition is so good. I could buy customers from Mark Zuckerberg for a few cents, right? I can just buy a new customer off at the top. So that's happening all the time. So that retention rate versus return rate, that's like a really big one that I'd challenge any. And I've actually asked a few brands in the last 2 weeks, can you go back and tell me my version of retention? And they've gone, we don't even know how to pull that data. It's like, God, okay. So I think there's a lot of the ecom platforms do this return customer rate thing very well, and because it makes people feel like they're doing okay. So everyone's just, we're all good. Return customer rates.
Yeah, I think I agree with what you're saying, and I do have sort of additional views, not differing views on this one, because I think there's different elements to consider. So you've got the commercial side of it. So I agree with what you're saying, especially this retention versus return. It seems to be the hot topic at the moment. So there's the commercial side, return on investment, customer lifetime value. Sure, we can definitely look at that. I also think there's more the customer-centric metrics also. So whether it's NPS, whether it's engagement, and what does that look like? So I think there's another layer of metrics. If we're talking broadly about metrics, there's obviously the commercial ones, but there's also the customer ones. And especially in loyalty, they need to be considered. We do need to put them on the table. One that's coming up more and more, it's not brand new, just more prominently, I think, is more that strategic, as in what's the brand doing as a sustainable element as well. A lot of, say, younger demographic, younger than you and me, Danny, unfortunately, but it's becoming more and more important as well. So that strategic alignment to the member and or the customer is also getting really important and probably needs to be considered in that metric pool.
Yeah, like I think this idea about intentionality, we use that word in the preamble at the start too, but I think this idea of like, why bother? Why have an account with this brand? And if it can mean because I can save my information, I can have a better shopping experience next time, I'm recognised whichever store around Australia, around the world I walk into, they know me. But also because what I buy counts towards my local school, or because what I buy, I can measure my specific carbon offsets, if you want to go down that road, because you've tracked my purchases, you can do the maths for me and give me that receipt at the end of the year about what impact I've made because I've chosen you over choosing an alternative that doesn't even tell me what my impact is. Mm-hmm. So I think that that return on investment for the customer's time and effort, I think if that's could be part of the loyalty program metrics that each individual customer is seeing, then that's what sort of tweaks their biases towards sticking with the brands over and above whatever pricing discounts and offers that you might give me. And then as a brand, you sum all that up and you can start having some pretty serious impact reports back as well. I think too, like one last one, it's another financial one, because I think a few people on the call will probably want to hear this. Yeah. But that sort of the cost of the incentives, the cost of the offers, we've done a lot of, whether it be rewards or points redemptions or anything where the member's getting a unique benefit to them as opposed to a blanket benefit that was offered to everyone. You do want to come up with a target range, whether it's between 2 and 4% effective margin impact across all member spend. It should feel to the customer like I'm earning 10, 15, 20% as a loyal customer, but it should only be costing you, between 2 and 4%. a relatively generous program for a brand that's probably got 60% margins. I mean, obviously the mechanics and the margins will change if you're a low margin brands, or if you're a house of brands that's already you've got a few people taking a slice of the margin pie. But for vertically integrated brands, they've usually got a fair bit of margin to play with. But that sort of cost of benefits or incentives should be a mechanic that or a metric that we're looking at optimizing for.
And encouraging redemption. I think we talk a lot about this. Is you do not want to be withholding this, especially
the success through
liability. Let's move from that. Let's be honest. But we don't want to be holding points liability. We want customers, members to come in and redeem, because the overspend is there. There's so many financial metrics we can add to that additional spend, or when they redeem the voucher, what they did as well as that. We've got to focus on that also. So we do want to encourage redemption of the reward. Please do not.
And that's sort of back to the staff point. So the idea of saying, we can measure your sales today. That's interesting. But what we'd like to do is, how many customers that you served came back again? What's Danny Phillips from store X? We can measure that your time to next shop is like much better than this guy's time to next shop. And maybe because you reminded him that he's going to get a reward, that if you don't read your email, it's there waiting for you. So, I'm making sure that every customer I serve, I'm doing a great job serving them, but I'm putting the hook in them as they walk out the door, personally, because I know I'll get credit for it. But if I go and buy online tonight and I don't get credit for that here, then I'm not going to bother putting the hook in. So we need to make sure that when I turn on my cash register in the morning, it goes, "Welcome back, Danny. In the 12 hours since you clocked off, you've already generated $4,000 because of the hooks you've placed into customers." Because one guy turned up at an airport store in Sydney, another guy went online last night and bought that thing that he was thinking about buying when he visited you 2 weeks ago, and now he's finally bought it. So all of those sorts of things. And as a staff member, I go, great. I'm kicking ass, and I haven't even opened the front door.
I just woke up.
You think that's the sort of the issue for a lot of these omni-channel brands, especially ones that are quite sort of large in terms of their store network, is that there's a disconnect in the in-store redemption piece? Why do you think there's still so many ghost checkouts in store when it's so much easier to redeem online?
Ghost checkouts online?
Ghost checkouts in store, because obviously
as well. Yeah.
If you're a single pure play brand and you have a loyalty program, it's very easy to stay online and to redeem online. But then you're an omni-channel brand, and then all of a sudden you've got an online shopper that wants to start coming into store. A lot of the time they're still checking out as a ghost checkout. Do you think, is it still quite rare to be getting these phones, emails, and sign-ups in store and to be able to connect that experience?
Oh, it's a broad one. I think there's retailers that do an awesome job. There are retailers that don't do such an awesome job, and there'd be a heap of reasons as to why. I mean, technology can be one of the answers. Whatever platform they're using, it doesn't work across all channels. That's probably a pretty obvious answer. And then, as we went back to before, staffing. And is the store really busy? There's times where people will just not do it, and I do it all the time myself. I don't bother. I'm in the store, I'm already a member, I don't identify because I'm in a hurry, or there's a queue, or it's too much to do. So there'll be a few different reasons. And we all, I guess, are striving to the omnichannel view, hence the name of this, like, why bother? We want the members to bother. We really do. But in some cases it can be complex.
And this is the rallying cry I'm putting out to the industry for this is that, I think right now, most stores I visit, I know they won't ask who I am, and I know that I don't care to tell them until I've got my wallet out and standing at the checkout. And even then it's 50-50, whether they'll ask me or whether I'll tell them. All right. So that's the status quo for most brands here, at least in Australia. When I go to a website, I will not log in because there's no reason to, unless I'm buying something. And even then, the guest checkout's so good that that's probably that'll just solve it for me anyway. Or I'll just pay with Apple Pay and it's got all my details, right? So, the status quo is we don't care to know you and you don't care to be known, because there's no benefit in you being known until you buy something. So that's the bit I'd like to change that. I don't know how. The technology needs to be there. We can help with that. But the more important point is, how do when I walk into a store, how can it become normalized for the person to go, you shopped with us before? Let me pull up your account, or there's a way for you to pull up your account so you can pick up where you left off. or whatever we do today, you're going to get a receipt for that time, not just your money. So how do we do that? How does it become normal? And maybe for a store where you're lining up and it's really fast, I get it. That's not going to be a thing. But if people in your store generally spend more than 5 to 10 minutes looking around and going from I've got no clue to now I have some clue, where does that some clue get saved? Like, where does that get saved? If I spend time in a change room specifically, like I hate going into a change room. I've been into the bloody Rip Curl wetsuit change rooms a few times in the last few weeks. And if you think going into change rooms is bad, wetsuits change rooms is the worst, and trying to get kids through them. So if I go to a surf shop and get a kid in and out of a wetsuit and maybe up to their third one to try on, once it fits, you damn well buy it because you know that doing this again is going to. But if I could save that and go, now I know your size, now I can buy it because you maybe only stock the 3 colors that he doesn't like, and I want to buy the one that's on your website. I know it'll fit because you saved the size. Maybe I'll write it down, but maybe I won't. So this whole idea of saving that time to my profile because it's the best way to shop and it's the best way to sell to you. And as a customer, as a staff member, why would we do this whole anonymous dance? Like, this just seems like a waste of your time and a waste of my time. So I don't know. Like, there's lots of reasons why that's going to be just too hard for most staff members, for most customers, for most brands. But I think as practitioners that are trying to decide how do we cross this loyalty bridge as an omnichannel retailer, we've got to solve that. I think that's the challenge. And I think I need people from a brand and retail frontline experience to probably turn up to more of these discussions and go, I think I've got answers, because I think I've worked with people that work in retail stores and I know what makes them tick. And right now they're not getting A, B, or C to get there. I don't have the answers to that, but that's the bit I think is the missing link for a lot of the success of these programs, because the marketing mechanics, the discounts that we might promise you in the future is obviously not enough for staff and customers to care.
Yeah,
I liked your point, Danny, as well, that we were so lucky. We worked with an awesome retailer last year, and what we found is while someone may transact, let's say 4 to 6 times in the year, they'd visit the store 12 plus on average, right? So I like your point around the fact that just because they haven't transacted that day doesn't mean they're not a valuable member. They might be coming in and having a look around, sussing out what they're thinking of buying, maybe trying some stuff on. They may not transact that day, but that person's still valuable to the program and the brand. They are still loyal and they still transact really, really well throughout the year. Or they may come into store, have a look around, try it on, and then buy it later online because they didn't feel like doing it right then. They wanted to think about it for a little bit, but they will buy it later online. So that's that omnichannel piece, bringing it together, because that person might still be a fantastic member and are high transacting and spending really well, but they may do it in different ways. They may not, and I don't know, I'm just generalizing for a second, but one of the things that came out of our research is there's plenty of times where women just don't want to be in a change room. To your point with kids, sure, women just don't want to do it. So they might want to buy it online, maybe do a return, but they can again still be a really loyal member. And I know returns can be a whole other conversation and a total pain. I'm not saying it's not a pain either. It's just that we've got to look at how people are really transacting and in different formats and try and bring that omnichannel together.
Yeah, and I think creating that utility, like the tracking of a visit. I mean, I was using the example the other day for Bunnings. I mean, I think everyone's shopped at Bunnings, but do you have the Bunnings app? Have you logged into it? Because it saves your local Torquay store, like I have. What I use it for is going in there and find the aisle, like which aisle's it in for the little thing I'm trying to find this day, because I'm trying to find a person's too hard, and it works really well. But now they know Danny's at Torquay looking for wall screws, and now he's there looking for extension cords. So like I press the button to find which aisle it's in. It's got that data. It knows that I'm there. A store visit was had. Now they know Danny was in store. And if that, I think the trick is though, don't keep all that data to yourself as a brand, as a marketing team. They talk a lot about single view of customer. You know, we've got all these great disconnected bits of technology and we stream it all down to a big data lake warehouse thing, and we can have a single view of customer. What I'm suggesting brands do is also stitch together those experiences at the top so I can have a single view of brand. So when I go to the Bunnings website and log into it some night later in the week, it should have a list of all the things I tried to find the aisles for. And I was trying to find the aisles for the 3/4 inch screws for whatever else, but now I've forgotten and I didn't find them, and I moved on with my life, but now I'm on the website trying to remember again, what was I trying to find again? Like, give that data back to me as well. I might find it useful. And then when I start experiencing the usefulness of my own data in the shopping experience, I'll create more of it because it's useful to me, and you're welcome to share it for your marketing and your analysis and insights as well. Help me shop first.
Danny, why do you reckon people many brands get so stuck in the whole planning process for so long? I feel like it's just a 6 to 12 month think, and never actually do.
I think with loyalty programs specifically is because they're a program, it's a marketing thing. It will have a poster, it might have a name. There's this whole sort of thing where people think that it's a big brand launch thing. And you look at great loyalty programs like, Mecca Beauty Loop. Beauty Loop's the brand of the loyalty program. So I just say to brands, we'll get there maybe, but maybe to start with, what you want is a known customer personalized incentive program. So
that's longer than loyalty program.
I know. All right.
Talking about big names, that's way longer.
We don't call it anything. It's just, as a customer of this brand, you get these experiences. And I think because it's a brand thing, it has to be big. It has to take time because strategically, now you've created a second brand that you're fighting for airtime and attention, when fighting for attention is already hard enough. Why are you splitting your own customers' brains in half? So that's a whole other topic. But so I think if you just go, well, let's start a set of personalized experiences and incentives. And then first, I'd say make sure that the first 90 days we evolve and make better. So when a customer joins, what does day one feel like all the way through to day 90? And hopefully their second or third shop. Because you can change that, because every customer only goes through that journey once. That's it. So you can keep changing that, because you can change the promise, you can change the experience, you can change the offers, because there's no risk of me going through it again. Right. So the best, and that's usually most incremental return, because most customers are one and done customers for most brands. If you just focus on the first 90-day experience for known customers, then that's where a lion's share of the incremental revenue will come from launching a loyalty program. Then
there's some good brands that can measure this,
and then do all the everyday stuff for all the everyday customers. Because once you go through some of those doors for everyday customers, you can't close those doors. If you offer an offer to all members, when you shop, you get this, you can't take that off people usually. So you do those last, or you do out of their dying hands.
We've seen that, and it hasn't gone down well generally. No. But I think there's some really great, I won't quote the brands, but there's some fantastic programs out there. They know exactly at 2.3 transactions, or exactly the number of transactions. Once their member has engaged with them that many times, they know they've got them. It's that's lifetime, or at least for a length of time. So that I think you mentioned it before as well. The time between first and second transaction, or second to third, that is a really important metric and a really important measure. And brands that know their customers and their members well will know that number, and know that the minute they hit that, we've got them on a different trajectory. We can call them a different segment, but we know they're staying with us for X amount of time because they've behaved certain ways.
I think one thing to watch with that one, I've done this before, where you do the averages, is that obviously the longer you watch, the longer the averages get, because you give people more time to do their second shop, then they start stuffing up the averages. So I'd say count all people that are second shop within 30, 60, 90, 180, whatever. So count them as buckets. You are a less than 180-day customer. That's it, because it's an absolute measure, and you're either in that bucket or you're not. You joined, we wait.
I know, yeah.
And then that's the count. And then over time, what's the ratio of people falling into those buckets, so you can track it as a percentage over time. So that it's the kind of conversion rate to loyalty, if you like. Those numbers and those cohorts, they then can become predictors of that lifetime value that we're talking about, or that annual average value. So, but not many brands are looking at those sorts of metrics. But I think they're like that. How many customers shop with the second time within 90 days? What's your number? And then measure it every week. Is it getting better? Is it getting worse? And you watch how bad it gets. 90 days after Black Friday, it'll be a disaster, because all these bottom feeders come out and mop up all the stuff, and then they disappear again. So, it's an interesting metric.
Yeah. So what kind of advice would you give, just finally, as we're sort of in the final 8-9 minutes of the webinar? What advice would you guys be giving to some of those brands that are stuck in that stage? They're reassessing the value to their customer, but then they keep pushing it back and don't want to launch. Carly, start with you. What are the small pieces of advice to just get to that
Sure.
point?
Start.
Something.
Start. Well, I strongly, strongly believe in evolution of programs and phased approach. Look, it's awesome if you've got full clean slate. We're going to start a program. We've got everybody on board, C-level board members, everyone that's keen and supporting the program. There's budget. Fab, love that. No question. That's not common, unfortunately. So, start small, start with something, phase it along. And also that gives you a chance to have exciting things to tell customers and members throughout the year because, hey, we've started with XYZ and then 3 months later, we're going to launch something else or add something else. Cool. We've got new exciting news, for the member. But also gives you a little bit of space to test and learn. If you had, say, 6 big features you're going to launch or you think you're going to launch, and maybe don't do them all at the start. Phase them in, see which ones are actually resonating because you might find that the 6th one we thought was going to be fabulous, not so hot. That's fine. We can phase it and evolve it out. Or sometimes we even recommend if you need to test a feature, run it as a campaign, run it as something small piece. Test it. Did it actually work? Was our assumption correct? Even though we might have asked everybody and they said, yes, we definitely want that. We roll it out and somehow it didn't engage. Cool. Roll it back. It was just a campaign. And if it does fly, new feature, fabulous, keep it in. So I don't want to make it sound simplistic, but sometimes it is just phasing it and taking it piece by piece and just getting something started. You don't have to do the whole hog. And look, if you can take the time and do the big name, that's also very fun. Love that. But it's not always the case.
Lee has asked a question here. He's asking about the concept of pilots and pilot programs. Have you got experience in running pilot programs, and do you think it's a good idea?
I do, and I know why he's asking that. So thank you, Lee. Time and place. This one I'm going to sit on the fence because I have seen some fantastic big brands use it really, really effectively, and they've done a really good job. And it served a purpose in a number of ways. In one particular example, it gave the loyalty team enough data to get the support of the C-levels. And that's what they were really needing right then for that particular program. They needed that sign-off. They needed additional budget. So that test case gave them that internally to then go to the next phase. So that's really important. In other cases, maybe it's a waste of time. Maybe it is just start and phase. So bit of both.
Yeah, when I've seen pilots run out, because the internet's a big place, trying to not tell people that you can only get this experience if you happen to pop up to the Martin Place store, it's kind of really hard. Why can't I get that over here? So don't underestimate how those prosumers can actually sniff out these things and start questioning, especially if it's a location-based pilot. Definitely pilot features. I think we're all agreeing that that's the case. But when you're trying to do location or online only, you're just going to color your results. Because I think a lot of the incremental revenue comes from people that don't fit neatly into a only shop in one place thing. So to do small things everywhere rather than doing big things in small places. And again, you end up with so many asterisks on the results that sort of buy-in you thought you were going to get from the pilot. Everyone, especially CFOs, and they'll just go, but. And you go, well, man, the only way to answer those questions is to do it properly everywhere. So someone's going to need to,
let's go.
Yes. Yeah. I just think they're doing something. There are some things you need to be careful that you can't unpick, but there are plenty of things that you can do that by doing them you'll learn the right approach that you can then apply to the riskier things. Not riskier, but the things that are harder to take back from customers. So it's about, but you need to do the other ones first and getting those foundations right so that if one of the main reasons you can't start is because the plumbing's not right or you've tacked on a whole lot of small tools around the outside that are just creating more gaps for customer data to flow into and you need to bring it together, then do that first. Because whether AI is part of your future or whether omnichannel loyalty is part of your future or whether super smart marketing platforms are part of your future, if your data's a mess, you're going to struggle. So fix your plumbing first. Do that now. There's no reason to not do that, at least. Yep. We've had some brands that get that plumbing bit right, and they've got 3, 4, 5 months worth of value in just seeing the light for, they're not changing any customer experiences just yet, but they're spending months just looking over all the information they can now see and answering questions that give clear answers that now pose harder questions that we never dared ask before because there was too many, it depends on the answer. So like just that alone, don't skip over that, and don't plug in more tools to test things on the outside that just create more gaps in your data, because it's just a bigger problem to unpick later.
Just a final thought, just on loyalty programs in market right now. Do you guys have a favorite that you've signed up to, or to a brand that you were really surprised by, and tell me why?
Should have been ready for this question. I always get asked it when
I do know the worst thing is I ask all our guests this. I'm like, oh, so it should be.
I'm going to start with Apple. Apple is my favorite, only because it's not a loyalty program, but they just know exactly. I can buy from JB Hi-Fi for most Apple stuff, but I don't, because I buy it through Apple because I can get those little custom engravings. It tells me all the accessories I can buy for the products that I bought. I went and did the Apple Vision Pro demo in a Singapore store the other day, and they were pulling up my thing, and they gave me a beautiful, I didn't buy one there, I wish I could, but they gave me a receipt of that, my visit, and what size Vision Pro I bought and all that sort of stuff. I mean, a $3,000 unit, of course they can do that. But it was a great experience because they knew me, and everything about my Apple experience is connected. So even though I can buy their stuff in other places, I always buy it from them because of that. And if you want to call that a loyalty program, you can, but and forget all their services and everything else like Apple TV. That's great also, but just in the case of buying physical products from their stores and their website, they've nailed
it. Yeah, I'd agree. And also, I think it is. If you go back and read around, obviously, the start and Steve Jobs, his approach to launching a lot of the products, but also Apple, you can apply the same psychology metrics. He's literally took very much what we do in loyalty and he has applied it. So you may not call it that. We may not stand there going, I'm part of the Apple VIP program. Clearly not. But you could literally, case by case, it is a loyalty program. You could argue that based on the way he approached it. So I do love reading about what he did early days because of how it really does apply to loyalty. And that's where you can have that big old debate. Is it a behavioural program or not? Interchange the words if you like. However, I'm with you, and thank you, Danny. Taught me heaps of new things about my Mac this morning, so I'm super excited. Thank you.
Yeah, prosumer.
And now I'm prosumer. I'm on board. Great.
I think there's no substitute for a great customer experience, and I think that obviously plays into the whole world of loyalty, is creating that experience, which in turn creates a loyal customer. So I was going to kick into a Q&A, but I think that's pretty much all we have time for. So thank you both for participating in our first webinar series, one of many, I'm sure. And I appreciate the insights. And for everyone that is listening along, thank you for being here. And we will have a recording that is sent out to everyone that's registered.
If anyone's got any other questions, just hit all three of us up on in LinkedIn. Is probably the best play to catch us if you need to do on LinkedIn. But yeah, let's catch you all again soon.
Awesome.
Well, I hope we answered the question, why bother, right? Did we do that? Did we actually answer the question? I'm not sure.
All right. Thanks again, guys, and have a good weekend.